tumejaliwa madini yanayoweza kutupa fedha za kutosha kuwekeza kwenye kilimo endelevu. Pamoja na yote hayo, Afrika tumebaki kuwa walalamikaji badala ya kutafuta suluhisho kuelekea njia itakayoleta mapinduzi ya uchumi wa kijani. Inakadiriwa kwamba zaidi ya Waafrika milioni 283 wanalala na njaa kila siku. Wengine wanapata utapiamlo na magonjwa yanayohusiana na lishe. Kibaya zaidi, wapo wanaokufa kwa kukosa chakula. Hii ni aibu na hali hii haikubaliki hata kidogo. Tupo hapa pamoja na AGRF na washirika wa maendeleo, sekta binafsi, wasomi na wataalamu kutoka Afrika na duniani kujadili kadhia hiyo, kubadilishana uzoefu kuhusu namna ya kuendeleza minyororo ya thamani ya bidhaa za kilimo na kujadili mipango ya kuimarisha usalama wa chakula na ustawi wa kiuchumi barani Afrika. Ili kuyafikia malengo hayo, sisi kama viongozi wa Afrika hatuna budi kufanya tathmini ya vipaumbele vyetu na kuvinasibisha na mahitaji ya sasa katika muktadha mpana wa kidunia, ili tuweze kuyafikia mageuzi tunayoyataka katika mifumo ya chakula na kuifanya sekta ya kilimo kutufikisha katika Afrika tunayoitaka. Ninatambua tumejiwekea ahadi kadhaa, ikiwemo kuongeza bajeti katika kilimo, kuimarisha ukuaji jumuishi wa sekta ya kilimo na kuhamasisha ushiriki wa sekta binafsi. Tulitoa ahadi hizi ili kutekeleza ajenda ya Umoja wa Afrika ya Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program ya mwaka 2003. Litimio la Malabo la mwaka 2014. Na mikakati kadhaa ikiwemo: moja, kuendelea kutekeleza programu madhubuti ya maendeleo ya kilimo, yani Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program tangu ilipoanzishwa mwaka 2003, pamoja na azimio la Malabo la mwaka 2014 kuhusu kuongeza kasi ya ukuaji wa sekta ya kilimo, yani the 2024 Malabo Declaration on Accelerated Agricultural Growth. Miongozo na maazimio hayo yanaelekeza nchi za Afrika kutenga angalau 10% ya bajeti kwa ajili ya kilimo, kukuza sekta angalau kwa 6% kwa mwaka na kutoa fursa za ajira kwa vijana angalau 30% katika minyororo ya thamani katika kilimo na kuongeza biashara ya bidhaa na huduma za kilimo ndani ya bara la Afrika. Pili, tunalotekeleza ni kwa bajeti ya kilimo mara 4 zaidi yalivyokuwa mwaka 2021. Ikilinganishwa, tumeongeza bajeti kutoka dola za Marekani 125 milioni 21 mpaka tunavyoendelea hivi. Vile vile serikali imeanza kutekeleza ajenda ya 1030 au ajenda 1030 inayolenga kuongeza ukuaji wa sekta ya kilimo hadi 10% ifikapo mwaka 2030, ambacho ni kiwango kikubwa ikilinganishwa na 4% karibu ya sasa hivi. Tanzania imejidhatiti kuingia kwenye masoko ya chakula ya kikanda na kimataifa ili kukidhi mahitaji ya chakula katika nchi mbalimbali. Tunaamini Tanzania inayo fursa ya kuwa mzalishaji na msafirishaji mkubwa wa mazao kama mahindi, mchele, mboga na mafuta ya kula katika Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki, Jumuiya ya Maendeleo Kusini mwa Afrika na nchi nyingine za Afrika na dunia kwa ujumla. Sasa, ili kuchochea kilimo biashara, nchi yetu inatekeleza miradi ya kurahisisha usafiri na usafirishaji wa bidhaa kupitia nchi kavu, yani roads and railways, kupitia bahari na angani. Vile vile tuna miradi mikubwa ya kuzalisha nishati na kujenga mifumo ya mawasiliano ya haraka baharini, Tanzania Broadband System na Africa System au project, ili kuwezesha kupatikana kwa maendeleo yanayotarajiwa. Jitihada hizi zote zinalenga kuharakisha na kurahisisha biashara kati ya Tanzania na nchi nyingine za Afrika, hususan kupitia ukanda huru wa biashara barani Afrika FCFTA, ambapo tayari tumeanza utekelezaji kwa baadhi ya bidhaa na nchi 7 za Cameroon, Misri, Ghana, Kenya, Mauritius, Rwanda na Tunisia. Tanzania vile vile, ili kurahisisha upatikanaji wa fedha kwa ajili ya kilimo, Benki Kuu ya Tanzania kufikia 9%. Tunaendelea na jitihada za kuwavutia wanawake na vijana kwenye kilimo, ufugaji na uvuvi, na jitihada hizi zinaratibiwa chini ya programu ya Jenga Kesho Iliyo Bora au Building a Better Tomorrow, ambayo imezinduliwa na inatekelezwa maeneo mbalimbali nchini. Jitihada nyingine ni pamoja na utekelezaji wa programu ya viwanda katika kilimo, yani Tanzania Agro-Industrialization Program, ambayo imejikita katika kuongeza thamani ya mazao ya kilimo, kuimarisha miundombinu ya umwagiliaji, utafiti na uzalishaji wa mbegu bora na kuimarisha mifumo ya masoko. Waheshimiwa viongozi, ndugu washiriki, nimetoa mfano wa Tanzania, lakini nina hakika jitihada mbalimbali zinafanyika kote barani Afrika. Jana tulikuwa Kenya, tumesikia Kenya wanachofanya na hatua iliyofikia. Hivyo ni rai yangu kwa washiriki wa maendeleo au washirika wa maendeleo, washirika wa AGRF na sekta binafsi kuziunga mkono serikali za Afrika katika jitihada za kuendeleza sekta ya kilimo. Hatua hizi ni muhimu sana katika kuimarisha mifumo ya chakula na kuhakikisha uendelevu wake. Na katika muktadha huo huo, natoa wito kwa Afrika kuonyesha mshikamano na nchi ambazo sababu mbalimbali ambazo nimezitaja hapo mwanzo katika hotuba hii. Waheshimiwa viongozi na ndugu washiriki, Tanzania ipo tayari kushirikiana na wadau mbalimbali pamoja na washirika wa maendeleo katika kutumia fursa za uwekezaji zinazolenga kuleta mageuzi katika mifumo ya chakula nchini. Ni matumaini yangu kwamba mkutano huu utakuja na mapendekezo yatakayoliwezesha bara letu kuhakikisha uendelevu wa kilimo na mifumo ya chakula, kubuni mikakati kuhusu na lishe miongoni mwa nchi za Afrika, kufungua fursa za kilimo, biashara na fedha kwa ajili ya kusaidia mifumo ya chakula kwenye ngazi za na mbinu za kisasa ili kujenga mifumo endelevu ya chakula hasa katika uzalishaji, kuimarisha biashara kikanda ili kuongeza usalama na uhimilivu wa chakula za nchi za kutoka kwenye mkutano huu, ikiwa na malengo pamoja na mikakati ya kuyafikia malengo tuliyojiwekea. Waheshimiwa viongozi, ndugu washiriki, mabibi na mabwana, sasa nihitimishe na niwatakie kila laheri katika maazimio yenu. Asanteni sana kwa kunisikiliza. Karibuni Tanzania. Waheshimiwa viongozi na ndugu washiriki, katika utambulisho nilimwacha Waziri Mkuu mstaafu wa Benin, Mheshimiwa Zinso, yuko pamoja nasi hapa. Asante sana.
Let's give a big round of applause to Her Excellency, President wa Kenya Kiswahili. Amesema sana, lazima nimtetee rais wangu Ruto, kwa sababu najua sisi wa Kenya na wa Tanzania sisi ni mandugu wa karibu. Wa Kenya tunazungumzia wa Tanzania kwa Kiswahili kibaya, wa Tanzania wanatujibu kwa Kizungu kibaya, tunaendelea, tunasonga mbele kama Injili. Ama namna gani? What I said is that Tanzanians and Kenyans were close friends. That's all, nothing more. Well, there are a few other things there, but this is a family matter. We're going to leave it there in the level of Swahili. We won't get into it. Najua, our foreign ministers, January Makamba and Alfred Mutua, understand. So we will leave it there. They can discuss later among themselves. But I really appreciate that we apologize that the translation did not work for parts of Her Excellency's speech. It was really inspiring talking about what Tanzania is doing to transform the food systems here, and she talked about the commitments, international commitments, like the Malabo Declaration, and other initiatives that the country is doing here. President Samia Suluhu Hassan said, we should not be complaining as Africans. We have vast water and mineral resources here. 60% of our population are the youth. We have everything we need here to transform our food systems. Do you agree? I didn't hear the right applause for that. I think. And one of the things that Her Excellency talked about, like in the last 2 financial years, her government has quadrupled their agricultural budgetary vote. So from what it was 2 years ago, it was about $100 million. In the last financial year, it was $400 million, quadrupled the budget going to agriculture in Tanzania. And she also acknowledged the contribution of the youth who were meeting here this morning and what they want to transform the food systems in the continent. And she said that Tanzania is ready to work with stakeholders and other investors to transform the food systems here in the country. Nimekosa ama nimepata, Rais? Asante sana. As Africans, we love music. We are a musical people, and it is now my pleasure to introduce Angel to entertain us. Angel, tafadhali. Ndio yule pale. Tafadhali mumkaribishe. Please give a big round of applause to Angel.
Afrika ni bara langu, bara lenye vijana wenye nguvu na wachapakazi, ardhi iliyojaa rutuba na fursa nyingi kwenye kilimo. Kwani nini hame bara langu niende kwingine na hapa kuna mafanikio? Wazee wetu walileta uhuru, ni wakati wetu. Upeni mitaji, tupo tayari. Tupo tayari. vijana tupo tayari, tupo tayari, vijana tupo tayari.
Asante sana, Angel. Thank you so much. I never thought a song about agriculture could bring the house down like that. Did you ever imagine? Umetisha sana. Asante. Another big round of applause for her. That is the most fun song I have ever heard about agriculture. And the youth say they are ready. Congratulations, Angel. Ni malaika kweli kweli. It is now my pleasure to invite to make her framing remarks on setting the vision for the continent, the CEO of the African Development Agency, AUDA-NEPAD. Please welcome to the stage Ms. Nardos Bekele Thomas.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think I was caught by surprise. Your Excellency, my dear sister, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, the United Republic of Tanzania, Your Excellency Macky Sall, President of the Republic of Senegal, Your Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency General Mwinyi, President of Zanzibar, His Excellency, my brother Haile Mariam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia and Chair of AGRF Partners Group, my dear brother also, the former President of the Republic of Tanzania, my dear brother, Mr. Kikwete. Who did I finish? The honorable ministers present today, my dear sister, who's brought us together, who is the president of AGRA, my predecessor and my dear brother, His Excellency, the former president of Nigeria. I'm so sorry. Well, you know, I'm a Nigerian, so I should pay you respect, partly Nigerian. And all protocols observed. And my sister from the UN. Observed, and my sister from the UN. It's just too much to recognize everybody, and you in all your honored to address you, Your Excellencies, on issues of food security, issues that are foremost on our development agenda as continent. Before I delve into the substantive issues, allow me to congratulate His Excellency, Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan for hosting us today to what seems to be a very successful summit. Congratulations, my dear sister. As always, the warmth and hospitality of the people of the United Republic of Tanzania is a source of pride and joy for all Africans. I would also like to congratulate His Excellency President William Ruto, who earlier this week hosted a highly successful first ever African Climate Summit in Nairobi. The Nairobi Declaration on Climate Change, agreed by heads of state at the just ended summit, offers a clear continental vision for tackling climate change while also pursuing our development goals. I would also like to congratulate His Excellency, the President of Senegal, His Excellency Macky Sall, for the Food Summit that was held last year in Dakar. Excellencies, distinguished guests, I should say that today, more than ever, there is a resounding message echoing from every corner of Africa, and it is crystal clear. From our leaders, government officials, to our esteemed development partners, from the dynamic private sector to the tireless champions of civil society, and above all, our women, our youth, the heartbeat of our future, our voices unite as one. Africa is a nation rising against all odds. We are rewriting our narrative, one that has too often been overshadowed by the paradox of plenty, where abundance coexisted with deprivation. Today, we stand united, acknowledging that this narrative is changing. Africa is awakening to the realization that we possess not only the resources, but the resilience, the innovation, and indomitable willpower to overcome our challenges. We are and remain the architects of our destiny. Building, ladies and gentlemen, resilient and inclusive food system for our continent is the most pressing challenge of our generation. As we speak, more than 250 million Africans are hungry, with the world still emerging from the devastation of the COVID pandemic and the ongoing Ukraine-Russia war. Hunger and malnutrition on our continent is set to worsen in the coming years. A worsening climate crisis, alarming rates of land degradation, and persistent marginalization of a large majority of smallholder farmers, especially women and youth, are a dangerous cocktail of mutually reinforcing crises that are converging into a perfect storm that would further threaten our food security and livelihoods. Excellencies, I concur with the conveners of the summit on the need for a quantum leap if we are to overcome the challenge of food insecurity on the continent. The current food crisis is a wake-up call for the continent to take immediate action and steps to radically transform our food systems. It is a reminder of the urgent need to accelerate the implementation of the Comprehensive Agricultural Development Program, the CAADP, our continental framework for agricultural transformation and agriculture-led growth strategy, which is, by the way, translated already into regional investment plans, and this has percolated to national investment plans. All this is to achieve ambitious targets on food and nutrition security as outlined in the Malabo Commitment. On the 31st of October this year, we will commemorate the Africa Day for Food and Nutrition Security in Lusaka. This day shines a spotlight on nutrition-sensitive agriculture as the basis for producing safe and nutritious food. Nutrition-sensitive agriculture plus nutritionally rich foods and dietary diversity are at the heart of interventions to overcome malnutrition and micronutrient deficiencies. Current efforts to build adaptive capacity of production systems and natural ecosystems are nowhere near what is required to keep up with the pace of climate change. The quantum of both public and private investments required to build system-wide resilience of production systems, livelihoods, and infrastructure is at least tenfold the current levels. Equally critical is our efforts to reverse the current high rate of land degradation, which threatens the sustainability of our food systems. It takes hundreds of years for topsoil to form. We lose 24 billion tons of this fertile topsoil each year due to unsustainable land and soil management practices. Today, more than 75% of the continent's cultivated area is degraded. Restoring the health of degraded lands is critical for overall human development, as land is a vital life support system for livelihoods and ecosystems. Healthy soils provide the foundation to raise the agricultural productivity, increase on-farm biodiversity, and reduce the pressure to expand agriculture into fragile natural ecosystems. There is well-established evidence showing that increased soil health improves water and nutrient use efficiency, leading to profitable farming and resilient production systems. The African Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit, planned for 5 to 6 November 2023, is a result of growing appreciation by African heads of state that our soils are the bedrock of our food systems. Building a resilient and inclusive food system hinges on our ability to reverse the high rates of land degradation and restoring the health of our soils. We expect far-reaching decisions to be taken at the summit to outline a roadmap for restoring the health of our soils. Excellencies, we are working with member states and other partners to adequately support farmers, especially the millions of smallholders who are the backbone of our food production on the continent. These farmers need sustained support to transition to modern and more resilient production systems and to connect better with markets to boost incomes. Equally critical is inclusive value chain development to open up opportunities for women and youth, including for processing and value addition. Innovative financing to cater for the unique circumstances of smallholders and agribusiness innovators, including ensuring access to affordable credit, is a critical condition for success, and we all know it. Excellencies, allow me to conclude by emphasizing that we are redoubling our efforts to drive practice change to transition our food systems towards climate-smart, regenerative practices that balance the need for healthy soils, healthy diets, healthy people, and healthy planet. Our DANEPAD remains unwavering in our commitment to achieve continental goals on food and nutrition security. Working with our partners, we are strengthening our programs with a view to making them more impactful, scalable, and sustainable. We are constantly reviewing our delivery models and theory of change to better define pathways between our interventions and intended outcomes. These improvements are also being cascaded to our member states through technical and advisory support for improved program design, development of business cases, and resource mobilization to support implementation. I would like to thank AGRA for their collaboration and cooperation in really translating these plans into action at all levels, both at regional and also national levels. Finally, I would like to reiterate something. And because our heads of states and governments are here, I would like to appeal that, yes, we have recognized the fact that we that food systems, the development of food systems and agricultural transformation is really fundamental for economic, social, and political transformation. It's also a day where we have recognized that we have unfulfilled promises and that there are deficiencies. And here we are committing ourselves to really make sure that we redouble our efforts and correct for the past, but also plan for today and tomorrow. And therefore, foresight planning is important and critical. Two is, in light of the quantum leap, recover. We cannot wallow in crisis. Crisis cannot define us. Building resilient food systems is critical. And here, I guess, we are all together committing to that. The third one is regenerate sustainable agricultural practices, regenerate our soils. And it's very critical and very important that we do that. In order to do that, excellencies, it's very important that we tackle the issue of coordination. There is so much wastage and there's so much leakage. And yet, the resources are finite. And we're running out of time. Need to coordinate, need to have a systems approach for upscaling and scaling up of our interventions. It's very important also that we approach the whole integrated approach, integrated strategic management approach to food systems, because we're talking about systems. It's not the agriculture ministry that would be responding to the challenges. Education, health, agriculture or food systems is about education, it's about health, it's about, it's about infrastructure, it's about IT. So all this need to be handled in a strategic management. Those countries like Ethiopia, Rwanda, Tanzania, name it, and others, to food system and agricultural transformation have succeeded. Let's learn lessons from this. And finally, also, inclusivity is critical and very important. We need the investment in human capital, critical for progress. We need to make sure, like Tanzania has done, and we have been supporting our DANEPA, many countries, in training and bringing skills to youth so that they can own land. Even if they don't own land, we can lease land for them and use it for agricultural production. And therefore, integration of youth is critical and very important. Integration of women and promoting women in agriculture is critical and very important. And acting, we have to implement, we have to act, leveraging on digital solutions. We have got technology on our side. Let's take advantage of it, let's act, let's implement at scale. Finally, I say regional collaboration for food security is becoming important, is the linchpin of success. Our data underlines the potential of regional trade agreements in bolstering food security, implementing the African continental free trade area fully could potentially increase intra-African trade in agricultural products by up to 70%. Let's act collaboratively for a food-secure Africa. Finally, to our development partners, please help us and be with us at all times. It's not a promise, unfulfilled promises, like I said earlier on, has consequences. Please, when we promise, when we pledge, it has to be serious and you have to accompany us. No one is perfect. If there are areas for improvement, we can improve them together. But partnership should be with, full trust and we need really predictability. And therefore, I think with those, I would say thank you very much for having me here and for this intervention. Thank you very much, Excellencies.
Another round of applause for her, please. Thank you. She said we cannot wallow in crisis, and she talked about some of the crises we're facing. It's now my pleasure to introduce the first of two panels we'll have this afternoon. I have three speakers coming up here to chat real quick. Ms. Melinda Bohannan is the Director General of the Humanitarian and Development at the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK. Please join me on stage, Melinda. Also, please give a big round of applause. She came a long way to talk to us. Also joining her on stage is Mr. Roger Voorhuis. He's the President, Global Growth and Opportunity Division at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and a member of the AGRA board. And last but not least, Mr. Svein Tor Holzeta, President and CEO of Yara International. I'm going to need to hear a bit more excitement from the room. We have a few more coming up. It's going to be short and sweet, I promise. Very important, so please stay with me. The theme is recover, regenerate, and act. And I think Ms. Bekele Thomas talked about one of those issues we keep talking about, the Ukraine war and how that's affected Africa's food systems, the grain that we depend on from Ukraine. So I'm sure they will be talking about that, as well as highlighting practical solutions and the role of sustainable farming practices on the continent. And finally, on the subject of ACT, they will be outlining actionable strategies for mobilizing investments and required policy and financial reforms, both from the public and the private sectors. The only lady in the group gets to go first. Melinda, please go ahead.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it is an absolute honor to be part of this panel representing, thank you, His Majesty's government and the United Kingdom's partnership with Tanzania. I want to start by recognizing the commitment that we have all heard, that I've heard across this conference, but particularly in this session, and the positivity of the debate. And I will start by saying it is a joy just to listen. I want to start, though, with a focus on recovery and why it matters. Africa's food system transformation has been battling continuous challenge over recent years. As we all know, in the last 3 years alone, the desert locust infestation between 2019 and 22 affecting 23 countries with 20 in Africa, COVID-19 and its economic scarring, the global impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine on food systems, and those are all in addition to existing conflict, climate change and humanitarian issues that some countries continue to endure. This has had a deep impact across global food.
I apologize, Melinda. Do you mind a little closer so we can hear you?
Sorry, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hope this works. The deep impact across global food, fertilizer and fuel prices, and the fragility of the system. I'm afraid in this crisis-prone world, those sort of shocks are going to continue, and at the same time, demands continue to rise with demography, with demographic growth. So this makes recovery and greater resilience absolutely essential, because to use a phrase from our previous speaker, crisis cannot define us. And we all agree that the how involves an interconnected strategy. Food systems are complex. They're very heterogeneous across different countries and crops and value chains. As we know from a recent study by the Rockefeller Foundation from April this year, creating more sustainable food systems, it called for a deeper understanding of these interconnected contexts to crack the silos and join the dots. And joining the dots requires us to think as much outside the sector as within. It means thinking about the macroeconomic, the debt issues, how they've impacted prices, all the way through to the investment in regional crops, fertilizer value chains, the investment in enabling infrastructure and human capital. All of those need to work together in order to get the private sector investment mobilized and at scale. I want to focus on ACT and what it means to act, and I will start simply by saying food systems, not food projects. 4 things that I would like to share that we should be doing more of in order to scale up. Those are regional integration, greater coherence, as outlined powerfully by Madam President, unity of purpose, research and deployment and data infrastructure. Firstly, regional integration. This really does support the scaling up of a particular crop along a regional transport corridor, rural roads, storage, processing, aggregation, and so forth, will improve connectivity between smallholder farmers and markets, between surplus and deficit food production areas, and intra-regional and continental trade in raw and processed agriculture staples, fruits and vegetables. The UK is supporting the ECOWAS Rice Observatory with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the African Development Bank, the World Bank, JICA, GIZ, and the Islamic Development Bank to reduce the import dependency of rice into West Africa, which cost the continent $4 billion per annum, and create a regionally competitive price chain. Secondly, driving coherence amongst partners and stakeholders. And I want the United Kingdom to be known as a committed partner to coherence and helping to lead the way. We know there are multiple donor and philanthropic programs across the food system sector. These all need greater coherence to maximize their impact, to minimize the divergence from the African context, including the Malabo Declaration and the post-Malabo process, which we've heard so much about. Practically, this can build on existing models. The United Kingdom support to COMESA to establish the digital regional food balance sheet with partners including USAID, Rockefeller, again the Gates Foundation and AGRA, and 6 African member states. Through this, we're supporting the Malabo Declaration's aim to triple inter- and African trade by 2025. Thirdly, collectively working to accelerate the adoption of research and development solutions aligned to prioritized food value chains in Africa, seeds, soil, climate adaptation. We know, for example, if we are developing a structured rice market in a priority West African country, then identifying what R&D investments can be prioritized in a way that meets the medium and long-term needs of a particular crop value chain is essential. Being targeted and focused to align those efforts will minimize the mismatch between great R&D outputs and the adoption by agribusinesses and farmers. Finally, supporting continued development of data infrastructure and use to improve policy predictability as well as responsiveness and the agility of the food system to increasing frequency of crises. African agriculture systems must anticipate and be more responsive to change and make use of timely data to drive effective decisions. Again, we know this is most helpful if adopted regionally. The United Kingdom has worked with partners on mutual recognition arrangements, MRAs, and COMESA Digital Regional Food Balance Sheet. These MRAs will ensure harmonization of cross-border trade policies. So in conclusion, a quantum leap for Africa's food security will require all of us to act together, governments, partners, youth, business, women. We know action for transformation requires us to act regionally, work in partnership, and anticipate those future trends to ensure resilience and agility and responsiveness and growth. I'm really proud to say that the United Kingdom is a passionate supporter of Africa's food transformation agenda, and we look forward to seeing what happens next after this conference.
All right, thanks a lot. Roger.
Your Excellency, Madam President, thank you for inviting us here today. I just want to actually start by saying what an exceptionally inspiring week it has been in Africa. I started the week in Kenya for the Climate Summit, and President Ruto, thank you for your leadership there. You have made an incredible statement of Africa's commitment and leadership in climate. And then, Madam President of Tanzania, the focus today has been one of the most successful AGRFs I have ever seen as a board member of AGRA. So thank you for inviting me here today. I have to tell you, I'm a little intimidated with all these heads of state to sit here as a non-African and talk about the quantum leap in African food productivity.
You're doing a good job so far.
I'll try my best. I raised my family just next door in Malawi, so I know a little bit about African agriculture, and I know a little bit of the lessons I've learned and the mistakes I've made. What I will tell you is a couple things. We've entered this season around 3 C's, we call them in the Gates Foundation, around COVID, around conflict, and around climate. And today, as the Minister of Agriculture in Tanzania talked about, we had a roundtable with African ministers. And what we heard were African solutions and African ideas for building resilience and for recovery. And I gotta tell you, I was both inspired and challenged because the future ahead requires not just recovery, but it's gonna require a quantum leap in growth. And that growth is gonna have to come from a known formula, but applied to a new situation in the face of the headwinds of climate change. So we've got to build a sustainable food system in Africa, and we've got to do that through smallholder farmers. In my lifetime, there have been the greatest number of people that have ever in the history of the world come out of poverty. First in China, second in South Asia. And I stand or sit here today with a commitment from the Gates Foundation that we would love to see the third wave of poverty reduction in the world come out of sub-Saharan and come out of African continent as a whole. And the possibility of doing that is what we've all learned is out of smallholder farmer productivity, increased investment in innovation, and a focus on women and girls at the center of development. Now, what I'll say is that there are three areas that we're going to try and emphasize as the Gates Foundation. One is to build a safer, more sustainable, more equitable food system that everyone needs to be at the table. It's going to have to be broad-based, where governments and sovereign states make commitments to agriculture. It's going to have to include the private sector, and it's going to have to improve the civil society where possible to hold us forward in what needs to be done that makes an impact on the lives of low-income people. Second, women are the backbone. New RCT that is coming out of West Africa actually shows that if you have a gender-intentional focus on agriculture, you can actually increase productivity 20%. Right now, women, on average, for the same amount of productive work in agriculture, earn 18% less. Where, if we're all looking for jobs, we're looking for GDP, just increasing gender-intentional agriculture gives you a boost of almost 18 to 19%. And that's a first place we're going to have to begin. And the third area for the Gates Foundation to make a quantum leap is around innovation. Everyone knows that our chairman, Bill Gates, founded Microsoft on the idea of innovation. We focus on that, and we focus it in agriculture in four areas: in animal genetics and animal health, in crop genetics, and in building new seed systems that actually can deliver for crops that are often neglected around the world, but are extremely important in Africa. And thirdly, to understand how new pests and diseases, both for crops and animals, need to be diagnosed early, need to be treated, and need to build in that technology into the seeds. I just want to congratulate Macky Sall, President Sall will be hosting the Grand Challenges next month in Senegal, where we're going to actually see the front lines of that innovation and that cutting-edge thinking come to pass. But we're going to need to push that into the CGIAR, which delivers 10 values of economic value for every dollar that's input. And you, as officials here today on the front lines of this journey, need to invest in national agriculture and research centers that are going to translate that into crops in the ground and to extension services that are appropriate, sustainable, and within planetary boundaries. And the last one I'll just say is we stand ready as the Gates Foundation to be helpful. We've partnered with YAR, we've partnered with FCDO as a place to actually focus on soil health, on affordable inputs and soil nutrition. And as I close today, we want to be partners with you, but you are in the leadership of this. And I guess from our soloist today, I should actually say that we should say Topo Tayare on behalf of the Gates Foundation. So thank you.
Mpo tayari, asante sana. And he rightly mentioned that in October, the Grand Challenges annual meeting is coming to Senegal in Dakar. We're looking forward to being there. I'm looking forward to there. Merci, félicitations, Président. And finally, last but not least, Svein.
Thank you, and Your Excellencies. It's such a great honor to be invited to take part in this discussion at this very around it. as Roger said around what he referred to as the 3 Cs, it's a very challenging backdrop with COVID, climate, and conflict. And in the short term, the importance to recover from that will be key. And we work together with governments to keep supply chains open. I am from the fertilizer industry, from the private sector, and as you've seen, there have been major disruptions. But we work together with governments. We work together with Roger and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations and others in order to make fertilizer more affordable, to make it reach the farmers through Sustain Africa, through Grow Ghana, and other initiatives. And while fertilizer prices have come down globally, there are new worrying issues at the moment. We see the impact of higher interest rates, currencies that have been devalued, and also the debt crisis. So that's the backdrop that we're working with, and that we need to keep in mind as we work on regenerating. And to me, the key word here is resilience. Shocks like we've had, we will have new shocks in the future as well. So we need to build a resilient food system that can withstand it. And to me, the key is in the soil, having a healthy soil, feeding the plant the right nutrition. Plants are no different than us humans. We need a balanced diet. So imagine if I told all of you that from tomorrow, your diet would consist of 2 nutrients only. What do you think would happen to your health? And why do we work in that way with plants? So it's about adding nutrients, having balanced nutrition, going from 2 nutrients to 5 nutrients, focusing on the soil. And when we have a healthy soil, the soil is more resilient. It can resist heat better. It can resist floods better. It can resist droughts better. So it's much better prepared for the future shocks as well. And there is a direct link between health and prosperity. And with that, we get that through the soil. So this is really our best defense against food insecurity. And here we need to think not only about food security, that is important, food sovereignty, also important, but also food as a business. Farmers run small businesses, all of them. It's about prosperity and helping them to become more profitable, to turning this into businesses. Africa could be a major exporter of food to the rest of the world. And by the way, the rest of the world needs Africa. We need to have food production in much more places in the world, and Africa is best positioned to take that role to be a major exporter of food to every part of the world. And over to the ACT part of it, and we had a great session under the leadership of Her Excellency, Madam President, this morning with young agripreneurs. We're right now in the 4th agricultural revolution. That's led by technology. It's led by the youth. And as we just heard from stage, they are ready. Let's include them. Let's help them to drive their businesses to make this leap forward. We don't need any new breakthrough technologies or innovations or miracles or anything. We have all of it. It's about putting all of that to use, and it's possible to do this. But it's not possible without finance. Risk sharing is key, or thinking full value chains. What we have done here in Tanzania is to bring in raw materials from parts of the world, but upgrading it, going from 2 nutrients to 5 nutrients. And when we apply that in the field of the farmer, together with the farmers, what do we see? Well, more healthy soil, but also doubling in the yield of the crops in the first season. It's tremendous what we can do together with the farmers when we work together and we de-risk the food system. So this is possible, but it is only possible if we share risks and we share costs and do the large investments in infrastructure, and we do that together. It is possible. This is the moment. This is the moment for Africa. Thank you.
It is possible, and this is the moment. Thank you so much. You talked about resilience, which is important as we face challenges, whether it's the Ukraine war or climate change. And Roger is optimistic that Africa can be the next part of the world to lift a generation out of poverty, and food systems, not projects, Melinda said. Please give them a big round of applause, the first round of speakers. Thank you so much. Please, you may take your seats. And like I said, as Africans, we love music, we love to dance. It's now my pleasure to introduce the next performer. Please give a big round of applause and welcome Jackson Panduka. Karibu sana.
Tanzania, kuilisha dunia, kuilisha Afrika, kuilisha dunia. Samia ongoza njia, tuna imani nawe. Kilimo biashara, umeonesha nia. Naye Waziri Basha amesema kwamba tupenda kuona vijana waje kuwa manamba tena kwenye nchi yao. Ardhi katoa mama, mibiti imepamba moto, tujitosheleze kwa chakula, tuilishe na dunia hii. Ardhi katoa mama, vijana sawako shamba, lengo tupate chakula tele, tuhudumie Afrika. Dr. Samia champion, na ndiye mbeba maono, amelenga kondoo masikini kupitia sekta kilimo. Huyo ndo mama Chifangaya, Samia mama, tunakuombea sana. Miundombinu ya kilimo iko sawa tayari kwa uzalishaji, hivyo karibuni sana wafanya biashara na wawekezaji. Naye Waziri Basha amesema kwamba tupenda kuona vijana waje kuwa manamba tena kwenye nchi yao. Ardhi katoa mama, mibiti imepamba moto, tujitosheleze kwa chakula, tuilishe na dunia hii. Ardhi katoa mama, vijana sawako shamba, lengo tupate chakula tele, tuhudumie Afrika. Dr. Samia champion, na ndiye mbeba maono, amelenga kondoo masikini kupitia sekta kilimo. Huyo ndo mama Chifangaya, Samia mama, tunakuombea sana. Samia ongoza njia, tuna imani nawe. Kilimo biashara, umeonesha nia. Miundombinu ya kilimo iko sawa tayari kwa uzalishaji, hivyo karibuni sana wafanya biashara na wawekezaji. Naye Waziri Basha amesema kwamba tupenda kuona vijana waje kuwa manamba tena kwenye nchi yao. Ardhi katoa mama, mibiti imepamba moto, tujitosheleze kwa chakula, tuilishe na dunia. Ardhi katoa mama, vijana sawako shamba, lengo tupate chakula tele, tuhudumie Afrika.
One more time, a big round of applause for Jackson Panduka tafadhali. Ukubongo, nyimbo za kilimo ni nyingi sana. Tumefurahia. Thank you so much. We love the agricultural music. It's fantastic. It's a good way to spread the message. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the second and final panel. Before we hear from our leaders, please, we heard from the development partners from the Gates Foundation, from the UK, FCDO, as well as from Yara International. And now it's time to talk about financing Africa's food systems transformation. Please welcome to the stage a big round of applause for Her Excellency Mariam Al-Maheri. She's the Minister of Climate Change and Environment of the UAE and host of COP28 this year. Thank you for joining us here. Shukran. Also joining us is Honorable Anne Tvinerim, Minister of International Development from Norway. Welcome. A big round of applause for her. And last but not least, our neighbor, Honorable Geraldine Mukeshimana, Vice President, International Fund for Agricultural Development, or IFAD. A big round of applause for her as well, please. We are going to be talking about the financial innovation which is necessary to finance all these dreams we have, which innovative financing mechanisms and strategies can drive the transformation of our food systems on the continent, as well as sustainability and resilience and global and local perspectives. Geraldine, please start.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. And moderator, first of all, when you were commenting about the singers, we were sitting and saying, oh, this moderator is underestimating us. So thank you for the singers. Yeah.
I will not make that mistake.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, you asked us to speak about the financing mechanisms and the strategies for food system transformation. And I'll say that actually we need currently innovations both in the public sector finances, we need it in the private sector finances, and also we need it in inclusive financial services. So for the public finance, it's really important that we think on how our development banks are working. It's really important that we support our governments to have innovations that are improving evidence-based decisions on our public and private sector financial flows. Others to on the prototypes for financial flows into food systems. On a financial sector side, it's really important that we think of innovations that are making a transformative private sector, but that are also including the roles of small-scale farmers, that are including SMEs, that are including youth and gender aspects. And on inclusive financial services, it is critically becoming important that integrated digital-enabled data systems that are supporting supporting investment into climate-smart agriculture become available. And on actually, you asked us also on how the financial initiatives can support long-term environmental and social goals. What we see in Africa and around the globe is that there is a growing number of initiatives that are seeking to integrate environmental factors into the decision-making of private sector and investors. But what we don't see is that there are no solutions that are coming together that are integrating both social and environmental impacts at the same time. And it's really critically important that we see into technologies that are targeting investment into climate adaptation for farmers, because actually adaptation, that is where environmental sustainability and social inclusion are meeting. Currently, we see that in Africa, in South America, in Asia, farmers are being heavily hit by the climate change. But when you go into the numbers, you see that only 1.7% of climate finance is getting to them. So this is a paradox that is needed to be addressed very critically if we want that we don't move with, I mean, we have a lot of gap to fix in environmental sustainability, but you don't want to be moving in that direction and making farmers and our people to fall down. So it's really critical that we look at them at the same time. And also, finally, looking at how do we make tailor-made solutions that are locally, regionally adapted. First of all, it's important to strengthen country-level financial institutions, making sure that they are building financial solutions that are enabling food system transformation. Second, it's important that our leadership and our financial sector look at all of these solutions in a client-centric approach. That means when we are designing solutions, we need to be listening to our farmers, we need to be solutions, we need to be listening to our farmers, we need to be made are really going to be solving the problems that our people are facing. And third, and probably lastly, it's very important that we look at our regulatory systems. How are they locally, regionally, targeting the problems that we are having? So we really need to have a regulatory system that are fixing our problems. And in that area of financial systems, we need to have better solutions. It's really urgent that we look at how can we fix the foreign exchange risks that our local currencies are really having at this moment. Thank you.
I'll come back to that point about adaptation and financing in a moment, but first, Honorable Minister.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I want to thank Madam President Samia Suluhu Hassan for convening us here. Thank you for the energy, and also thank you for all the heads of states that are with us today for honoring us with your presence. I also just came from Nairobi. President Ruto, thank you for your very inspiring speech. I remember youth, opportunities, and finance. Really exciting. For me, it's to be here in Africa and also see the opportunities, see the young people. Your motivation is so exciting. And the good news is, we're very close to COP28. It's less than 90 days until COP28 happens. And we have put food systems transformation of you, because it's been through consultations with you, momentum building, that we have been able to put food systems transformation on the center stage with the renewables and all the other subjects that usually come up on the climate agenda. So thank you, Agnes. Announced the COP28 Food Systems and Agriculture Agenda, which was done in Rome at the Food Systems +2 Summit. And this is really exciting because it gives all of you now a kind of framework, a Northern Star, to come together and put all the initiatives that we've already announced before and kind of bring in new ones on 4 pillars. One is galvanizing national leadership. And this is where I ask all the heads of states that are with us today. We'll be sending out to you the Emirates Declaration on Food Systems Transformation. Please join in. The more we get on board, the more momentum we can build for food systems transformation. Then the second is about non-state actors. How can we enable or empower non-state actors? Because governments cannot solve this alone. Water-scarce country. We have around 4 to 5 days of rainfall in the year. We don't have rivers. And so for us, we really had to think of how can we grow food in the desert? And we've looked at innovation. And it's with lots of partners that we have, with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with the research institutes that we've talked to, Rockefeller, and many, many partners that we've done. Aim for Climate, as you know, with the US, we've been leading this, 500 partners, $13 billion in commitments. We invite you all to join in Aim for Climate. We invite you also to join in another platform we've done, which is the Mangrove Alliance for Climate. These are really important to share knowledge, look at technologies, look at lessons learned, because we know that we have another 7 years until 2030. The time is ticking. We can only do this if we all do this together. So another thing you've probably seen, and President Ruto, this was at your African Climate Summit, and congratulations for the first summit, the UAE has committed $4.5 billion for Africa for the renewable energy ramp up, because we want to treble the capacity until 2030. So I'm building also this kind of momentum as well on the food systems transformation. I cannot do this alone. I need all of you in this with me, and I know together we'll be able to really take this to a new level, because we really have to course correct from where we are today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And that announcement you mentioned, the $4.5 billion committed at the Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, is the biggest of all the announcements we saw at the summit, which is obviously a big boost for Africa. I just want to touch on something you said, that you put food systems transformation at the heart of COP28. What's in it for us from Africa?
Okay, so now that we have the agenda, I would like all the African nations to come on board on the declaration. This is number one. We have introduced a youth champion to the COP process. And I know she's been also in Nairobi. She's been doing a lot of visits. She's been talking to the youth to try and get them on board, get their inspirations on board. We need to see, or let's say the youth of the world need to see the opportunities that you have here in Africa. And of course, the innovation side. Please come into platforms such as Aim for Climate, because this is where you will see innovations. I myself, every time I go and I see, so we kind of convene once a year, we do a ministerial for Aim for Climate partners, and this is where we showcase innovations as well. And I've seen things that I never thought existed. And when you start seeing there are solutions out there, we don't have to create anything new. Solutions are out there. We just need to get them to the right people, get the financing fixed, and scale up. And there's so much opportunity, because I feel the passion is there, the will is there, and we're understanding that we have to fix this. And by the way, if I can just add one more thing. The whole situation we're in with food systems, it's not just about agriculture. It's about us as human beings. We are pulling at the food systems. We are choosing our food when we go to the supermarket, what we buy, what we put in the rubbish bins. We have to also play our role, and we have to be responsible for what we do. We cannot just keep pointing fingers at farmers. And by the way, I want to say, for any farmers that are in the room or listening to us today, we thank you. We thank you for all that you do. I think more has to be done to thank the farmers and recognize them. They're not having an easy job at all. We went through a whole revolution of when it was about quantity, to try and get poverty up out of the dark hole, to try and get food to the mouths of people. And now we're saying, no, this is the carbon footprint, we need to lower it, we need to lower it. So I first want to say thank you to all the farmers out there. We need to work beside you, and we need to also, each and every one of us in this room, including myself, we need to reflect a little bit how we are pulling on the food system.
All right, I'll come back to fixing financing in a second, but I wanted to ask Geraldine as well on that topic, because you were talking about this lives and dies on adaptation, and we're just not seeing enough funding coming for that to, support farmers, to support people who are suffering the brunt of the climate crisis.
It is true we don't see sufficient financing coming into agriculture, and especially for the rural small-scale farmers. As I said, it's only 1.7% of the climate finances that reach the small-scale farmers. And we have been observing on African continent, on Asia and South America, when the floods comes, it means people are dying. When drought comes, it means people are dying. And it's been really, when you look at it, IFAD, we have a finance that we call adaptation of small-scale farmers to climate change. It is only that money that you see reaching the small-scale farmers. Then it becomes important that we, as the minister has mentioned, it's not about anyone, it's not about the earth, it's about us. How come we say that 60%, 70% of our African population is employed in agriculture? Our economies are depending on agriculture at over 40%. But when it comes to climate money, it doesn't go into agriculture. So before we do anything else, we should be looking at what are we trading? What are we transporting? I mean, I used to be the Minister of Agriculture in my country, and when my bosses were going to the parliament to report on transportation, they will carry me around. When they go to report on trade, they carry me around. And one time I say, so why are you taking me? And they say, oh, the transport is about food. The trade is about food. How can we leave you behind? So it's really important that we start looking at what is needed, and we say like, okay, it's not about transport, it's not about cars, it's about us. And it's really important that we be kind of selfish. All of us, we eat. So where do we feel like the food is coming from? We leave it to these poor people who do not have any means of growing food, and at the end of the day, we go to them to give the food. So it's really important that we start looking at it and say, these people are producing 70% of our food, therefore, they are making the third of our economy, therefore, let's target them, let's finance them, let's support them to feed us. So to us, as the IFAD, we are working toward that, but we really need to be having other finances to join and be able to deliver for the small-scale farmers. Okay.
President Hassan in her speech talked about Tanzania's ambition to be a grower and an exporter of food. And she talked about
because that is actually what you need to do any transformation. I'm going to give you an example in our own country. As I said, water-scarce country, desert environments, but then we looked at innovations and we looked at things like how we can grow food and recirculate the water. How can we grow food not outside the cities, but in the cities? How can we get young people, and by the way, when I tell young people about becoming a farmer, their faces change, and it's not very positive.
It doesn't look good on TikTok.
No, but then if I tell them, how about becoming an agro-technologist? That's actually cool. They like that, and then they start asking more questions. And then imagine bringing the young people, making sure they're in the cities, they can use warehouses, they can use old storage facilities, and this is what's happened in the UAE. So it's really important that countries enable the policy frameworks are made so that you can then enable the financing, unlock the financing, and bring in. And then it's the off-takers. That's really important. Having the right off-takers. And by the way, you always have to think outside the box when it comes to financing. Why are we here today? Why is climate finance such a big deal? It's because it's so hard to unlock. Making sure finance is available, accessible, and affordable is so difficult. But I tell you, and of course I'm working alongside our COP28 President-designate, Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber. He is working on this financing track and making sure it's going to happen. He wants to make sure that the $100 billion is committed, something we've been waiting for many years. So he's really driving to make sure that promises are kept, to unlock as much finance as possible. He managed this now with the renewable energy, and we want to do more on many other subjects. So this will come along, but again, the right ecosystem needs to be there to unlock the financing. We've gone through it ourselves in the UAE. We've been on a journey to decarbonize our economy and also make sure that we're unlocking finance from the private sector as well to our net zero pathway growth. So it's not easy, but it's a whole sync of many factors that need to take place.
All right, thank you. And finally, Geraldine, you've got all the stakeholders involved in this journey to try and transform the food systems and find the financing, find the money for it. What's your word for them? You get the final word.
I think I have said it before. We are attending the Africa Food System Transformation Forum, but I think it's equivalent to their other forums as well. It's really important that we think that climate finance, food system transformation finance, it's not because of agriculture. It's because of us as people, as the minister has mentioned. And it's really critical that we unlock the financing for those people who are consistently struggling to put the food on our plate while we are doing other things. So that's my core. Thank you.
All right, we're going to leave it there. A big round of applause for the Honorable Minister and Geraldine from IFAD. Thank you so much. We are now just about ready to hear from the leaders. But as I said, we're Africans. We like to dance. We like music. So one final performance. Please put your hands together for Remy Mbao. Karibu sana, karibuni sana.
Afrika simama, tuungane pamoja, tulilishe bara letu na kufuta vifo vya njaa. Viongozi wa Afrika, tuungane pamoja, kutuliza uhuru wetu wa pili wa uchumi. Walele we are war, walele we are war, awelele we are war, awelele we are war.
Tazama Afrika, bara langu zuri, Mungu amelipamba kwa maziwa, mito na bahari.
Wazee wetu waliungana kuleta uhuru wa kisiasa. Viongozi wa sasa, unganeni kuleta uhuru wa kiuchumi na chakula. Ni sera ya uhuru, unganeni. Afrika, tunakufa kwa njaa. Afrika, tunagiza chakula kutoka nje. Oh no. Vijana wa Afrika, tuko tayari twende kulisha bara letu. Viongozi timizeni wajibu. Viongozi wa Afrika, unganeni pamoja kutokomeza vifo vinavyotokana na njaa. Les dirigeants africains s'unissent pour éradiquer la mort provoquée par la faim. African leaders uniting to eradicate death caused by hunger. African leaders uniting for food security, for food sovereignty. Tuungane pamoja, tulishe bara letu na kufuta vifo vya njaa. Viongozi wa Afrika, tuungane pamoja, kutafuta uhuru wetu wa pili wa uchumi. Walele we are war, walele we are war, awalele we are war, awalele we are war. Sote kama bara tunapaswa kota pamoja, ndoto ya kuhakikisha usalama wa chakula unaimarishwa.
Ni aibu kwa bara letu kuwa na shida ya chakula, ikiwa 70% ni vijana.
Tanzania tuliongoza mapambano ya uhuru wa kisiasa, na sasa sasa tupo tayari kuongoza mapambano ya usalama wa chakula. Vijana wa Afrika tuko tayari kulisha bara letu. Viongozi wa Afrika unganeni pamoja kutokomeza vifo vinavyotokana na njaa. Les dirigeants africains s'unissent pour éradiquer la mort provoquée par la faim. African leaders uniting to eradicate death caused by hunger. African leaders uniting for food security, for food sovereignty.
African leaders, our forefather and great leaders, Kwame Nkrumah, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, Nelson Mandela, Kenneth Kaunda, Jomo Kenyatta, and others who came together to grant and secure political independence to our continent. You have the chance and responsibility to lead Africa towards achieving its second economic independence, which is equipped with food security and food sovereignty. Young people are ready to take the initiative and provide us greater strength. Hakuna Matata. Africa Simama.
Young men and women, fantastic performance. And now we've come to the moment we have all been waiting for. Please stand and welcome our leaders to the stage. It is called the Presidential Summit after all, and it is called the Presidential Summit because the presidents are here with us to listen, to take notes, but also to share their perspectives on transforming Africa's food systems. Thank you. First of all, tafadhali tumkaribishe our host, Her Excellency, our leaders to the stage. Next up, bienvenue, Son Excellence, Monsieur Macky Sall, Président de la République du Sénégal. Bienvenue. I know he's got a cold, his minister will speak on his behalf, but please join us, Your Excellency. J'ai compris. Son Excellence, Monsieur Général Évariste Ndayishimiye, Président de la République du Burundi. Bienvenue. And finalement, my president, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya. Karibu sana. Tutaanza tena na Rais Samia aseme mawili matatu alafu ndio tuendelee na viongozi wengine. Asante sana. Chochote tu. Ukipenda hapo pia.
Asante sana mwongozaji mjadala kwa fursa hii Nadhani tunapoelekea kufunga mkutano wetu, sasa ni wakati wa kusikia kutoka kwa viongozi wakuu wa nchi, marais wa nchi, na tuko wanne hapa, lakini pamoja nasi kuna rais wa Zanzibar ambaye amefanya vizuri sana kwenye blue economy. Nadhani na yeye tungemsikia experience, ningeomba na yeye aje atupe experience how they did with the blue economy. Lakini niseme nawashukuru sana. Toka juzi mkutano umekuwa na mjadala mkubwa, mzito, muhimu, na tunategemea kupata maazimio kutoka kwenu, kutoka kwa vijana. Mnatuambia nini marais, nini cha kufanya, wapi turekebishe, wapi tuweke nguvu. Lakini kutoka kwetu ni commitment kwenu kwamba sisi kama leaders wa Afrika tuko tayari kulisha ulimwengu. Tuko tayari kuiondoa aibu ya Afrika kutegemea chakula kutoka kwengine. Tuko tayari kufanya hivyo. Sasa pamoja nami, ngoja tusikie wengine wanasemaje. Asante sana.
Asante sana Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. And she said something that I really want to reiterate, that we should be ready to drop the shame of Africa depending on the rest of the world feeding us. Let me say that again. It should end that we as Africans depend on the shame of the rest of the world feeding us. Now you can clap. Thank you so much. I was going to invite President Mwinyi at the end, but because you've joined us, you still have the role at the end to give a vote of thanks, Your Excellency. But before that, President Samia talked about the blue economy and what you're doing in Zanzibar. I would love for you to touch a little bit on that, Your Excellency.
Asante sana. Kwanza nichukue fursa hii kumshukuru Mheshimiwa Rais Samia Suluhu Hassan kwa kuleta mkutano huu mkubwa hapa Tanzania. Sisi kule Zanzibar tasema kidogo kuhusu experience yetu. Kama mnavyotambua, Zanzibar ni kisiwa, ni sehemu ndogo au visiwa ambavyo vina nafasi ndogo sana katika swala zima la kilimo. Kwa hivyo tukaamua kwa makusudi kwamba sisi shamba letu tulifanya ni bahari inayotuzunguka. Kwa hiyo tukaweka nguvu katika swala zima la uvuvi, ukulima wa mwani na ufugaji wa mazao ya majini. Tunashukuru kwamba mafanikio yameonekana. Kuna vijana wengi sana wamepata ajira katika maeneo hayo. Serikali kwa upande wetu na kwa msaada wa washirika wetu wa maendeleo tumeweza kuwawezesha akina mama hususan katika ukulima wa mwani, na kwa taarifa tu ni kwamba Zanzibar ndio mkulima mkubwa wa mwani katika bara zima la Afrika. Lakini kwenye upande wa uvuvi na upande wa ufugaji wa mazao ya majini pia tumefanya vizuri. Vijana wetu wameweza kuwezeshwa kwa mitaji, kwa teknolojia, na wameweza kufanya miradi mbalimbali inayohusiana na ufugaji wa samaki, ufugaji wa kaa, ufugaji wa tunaita matango bahari siku hizi, na yote haya yameonyesha mafanikio makubwa. Kwa hivyo wakati tunazungumza swala zima la kilimo kwa upana wake, kilimo ni pamoja na ufugaji wa mifugo mbalimbali pamoja na uvuvi ndani yake. Sisi kule Zanzibar tumejikita katika eneo la uchumi wa bahari, na kwa sehemu kubwa sana tumeweza kuzalisha ajira nyingi za vijana wetu. Kwa hivyo sasa tuko tayari ku scale up yale mafanikio tuliyoyapata ili tuweze wafanya vijana wengi.
Asante sana, Rais. And I guess he's talked about something that you haven't heard a lot about here. I mean, I haven't been here every day, about fishing, because Zanzibar is an island. It's a beautiful island, and I think the Africa Food Systems Forum is organizing a trip to Zanzibar sometime today, tomorrow, in the days ahead. And he talked about all they're doing around fishing to employ the youth of Zanzibar. I was going to invite His Excellency, the President of Senegal. Unfortunately, he's got a cold. That's why he's wearing the mask. So he cannot speak because he's lost his voice. But he's kindly asked me to invite the Agriculture Minister of the Republic of Senegal to read his speech on his behalf. So please welcome to the stage Mr. Aly Ndiaye.
Bonjour, je vais me charger de lire le discours de son Excellence, Monsieur le Président Macky Sall. Donc, je lui prête ma voix pour lire ces termes. Excellence, Madame Samia Suluhu Hassan, Présidente de la République unie de Tanzanie, chères sœurs, chers collègues, mesdames, messieurs, chers amis, je vous remercie vivement, Madame la Présidente et chères sœurs, pour votre aimable invitation et votre accueil chaleureux à l'occasion de ce sommet sur les systèmes alimentaires en Afrique. La question est vitale et d'actualité. De tout temps, tout ce qui touche à l'agriculture et à la sécurité alimentaire revêt une priorité de premier ordre. Cela est encore plus évident aujourd'hui pour nos pays confrontés aux effets combinés du changement climatique, de la pandémie de Covid-19 et d'une guerre majeure. Les chiffres parlent d'eux-mêmes. Selon l'estimation des Nations Unies, plus de 750 millions de personnes, dont près de 240 millions d'Africains, vivent aujourd'hui dans l'insécurité alimentaire. La faim en Afrique n'est pas seulement une préoccupation, c'est aussi et surtout un grand paradoxe pour un continent de 1,4 milliard d'habitants et 30 millions de kilomètres carrés, disposant de 60% des terres arables non exploitées de la planète et abondantes en ressources hydriques. Avec un potentiel aussi immense, l'Afrique ne devrait avoir ni faim ni soif. Bien au contraire, elle devrait pouvoir se nourrir et aider à nourrir le monde au lieu de continuer à importer et pire encore, à dépendre de l'aide pour satisfaire l'essentiel de ses besoins alimentaires. Il y a 20 ans, nos pays avaient pris l'engagement, dans la déclaration de Maputo de juillet 2003, d'allouer au moins 10% du budget national à l'agriculture. La réalisation de cet objectif requiert avant tout un choix volontariste qui joint l'acte à la parole. À titre d'exemple, au Sénégal, nous avons porté à 12% la part de l'agriculture dans le budget général d'investissement et augmenté en 2 ans de 75% le financement de la campagne agricole saisonnière afin d'accélérer notre marche vers la souveraineté alimentaire. Nos progrès sont réels, même si les défis à relever restent encore nombreux. À l'échelle africaine, le Sénégal a organisé en janvier dernier le Dakar agricole en collaboration avec la Banque africaine de développement, après le Dakar 1 en octobre 2015.
Kongamano kubwa kwenye jiji la Dakar ambalo tulikuwa tunafuatilia yaliyofanyika mwaka 2015 kuhusu jinsi ya kupambana na njaa. Katika kongamano hilo tulifanya azimio kwamba kwa siku zijazo tutakuwa tunakusanya nguvu zetu pamoja tuweze kukabiliana na matatizo ya njaa na kuleta usalama wa chakula. Kuanzia siku hiyo kuna tumewekeza zaidi ya bilioni 72 na pia tunataka kushukuru mashirika kama vile Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika ambao pia mwaka 2022 walijumuika Muungano na kuwekeza kuelekea kwa mambo ya usalama wa chakula. Na tukielekea upande wa mbolea tunataka katika kipindi cha muda mfupi ujao na muda mrefu tuwe tunawekeza zaidi katika mambo ya mbolea. Tukiangalia, nimefurahi kwanza kwamba Umoja wa Afrika ulimpatia hiyo fursa Rais anazungumza kutoka waziri wake kwamba kama tunataka kuendeleza uwezo wetu katika usalama wa chakula, lazima tujitolee kwanza, tuanze kufanya utafiti katika sehemu ya ukulima, kwa mfano kuleta vifaa, kutumia teknolojia ya kisasa ikiwepo mambo ya usafiri. Pili, tuanze kuongeza maeneo ambayo hayajaangaliwa sana, ikijumuika vyakula ambavyo hatujaweza kuwa tukivikuza. Tatu, tuangalie jinsi ya kuweka mazao baada ya kuyavuna ili kuepuka hasara zitokanazo na mazao ya kuharibika na kuhakikisha kwamba tuyafikisha kwenye masoko ya kuyauza. Mwisho, inabidi tuanze sasa kuwapatia fedha ama kuwafadhili wadogo wetu ama watu ambao wako katika sehemu ya chini ya uchumi, kwa vile wanawake na vijana, waweze kuendeleza njia zao za ukulima, na pia tuwabadilisha mawazo kuhusu mambo kuhusu kilimo, na mtazamo ibadilike kuhusu kilimo, tuna mtazamo chanya. Leo zaidi ya mambo ilivyokuwa nyuma, tunafaa sasa kuvunje fikra potovu kuhusu mambo ya ukulima. Sasa tuanze kuwa wastahimilivu ili tuweze kuafikia malengo haya. Nataka kusema kwamba natakia kila laheri kongamano hili liweze kuisha vizuri. Asante.
One more time, a round of applause for President Macky Sall. Time, a round of applause for President Macky Sall. Monsieur le Président, merci pour ce discours. Now it is my pleasure to invite the President from the neighborhood. And now it is my pleasure to invite the President from the neighborhood, Evariste Ndayishimiye, Président de la République du Burundi. Bienvenue.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Mama Samia, dada yangu. Nakushukuru sana na nawashukuru wa Tanzania wote kwa mapokezi mazuri mliyotufanyia tangu tulipofika hapa. Na nampongeza Mama Samia kwa maandalizi mazuri ya huyu mkutano, na nawapongeza Watanzania wote. Ni kawaida kutupokea vizuri hapa, tuko nyumbani. Lakini nitawaomba msamaha, nitasema lugha nyingine. Mnajua maua kupendeza lazima muweke rangi nyingi. Ndio sababu na mimi naleta rangi nyingine ya Kifaransa, lakini tukimaliza tutaendelea kuongea, bado niko huko. Excellence Madame Samia Suluhu Hassan, President de la République de Tanzanie.
Hassan, Rais wa Senegal, Macky Sall, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, William Ruto, Rais wa Zanzibar, Mheshimiwa, Rais ambao wamefika hapa, wa zamani wa sasa, itifaki zote zikizingatiwa. Kwanza ningependa kuwashukuru sana. Ni washukuru washirika wenzangu, ni washukuru Rais Suluhu Hassan na serikali yake ya Tanzania kwa mwaliko na kwa ukaribisho mzuri mliopatia mimi na ujumbe wangu. Nikuwaletee salamu kutoka nchi ya Burundi na wananchi wa Burundi. Sisi wabibi na bwana tumekuja kwenye hili kongamano kuja kuwa tunapendezwa sana na hatua. Kwa hivyo ningependa kuzungumzia mada ambayo ni muhimu sana, na mada hii ni kuhusu chakula ambacho ni muhimu katika maisha ya mwanadamu. Na unajua chakula kinatuunganisha. Na asante kwa kutuleta pamoja hapa tuzungumzie kuhusu mabadiliko ya mifumo ya chakula. Na ni muhimu sasa tuwe tayari kutenda. Ni kitu muhimu kwa sisi sote ambao tuko katika hali ngumu ambayo ina changamoto nyingi. Kwa mfano vita vilivyopo kule Ulaya, mambo ya kuwa na watu, ongezeko la idadi ya watu. Mheshimiwa Rais, mabwana wa bwana, ukiangalia kauli mbiu ya mwaka huu ambayo ni kutoa ama kurejesha tena, kuongoa na kutenda. Na pia tuangalie sasa, tuangazie kwa sehemu ya mambo ya mazao, mambo ya wanyama wetu ama mifugo, na tulete pamoja kama Waafrika tupate suluhu ya pamoja. Hatutaki kamwe watu kufa nchini Burundi. Tunafahamu fika jinsi eneo la mambo ya kilimo na chakula na tuna nchi yetu ni ina ekari 27,000 na kitu.
C'est cela qui nous a poussé à étendre nos pensées aux fonctionnaires, aux employés dans le secteur privé, aux commerçants, touristes, etc.
Tungependa kufanya kazi na sekta ya binafsi, mambo ya wageni wale ambao hawako katika sekta ya ukulima ama kilimo. Tumeanzisha lengo mpya tangu mwaka 20 kwamba kila mdomo ama kila kinywa kinafaa kulishwa, na kila mkulima anafaa pia auze, na wakulima wanaotumia mali yao ya kifamilia ili kulisha watu wao. Kwenye mfumo mpya tunataka kwamba kama kuna ardhi ambayo inaweza ikatumika kwa kilimo itumike, na ile ambayo inabaki itumike kwa mambo ya mifugo. Watu wanapenda ardhi zao, na kwa mfano nchini Burundi watu wanapenda ardhi yao ambayo wengine hawatumii, kwa maana kwamba watu wale wanataka kufanya kilimo wanashindwa kupata ardhi ya kufanyia kilimo, so wale wanaishikilia. Tunataka tutafute mbinu na mfumo mpya wa kupata ardhi, na pia tuanzishe mfumo ambao ni endelevu wa kukuza mazingira. Ya miaka michache iliyopita, masuala ya kilimo yamekuwa ni kipaumbele kabisa kwa serikali yangu. Na tunataka kwamba tuna usamilivu katika uzalishaji wa kilimo na mambo ya biashara. Burundi tunahakikisha kwamba mambo ya pembejeo na mambo ya mbolea iweze kupatikana kwa wakulima wetu. Mtu binafsi hawezi akazalisha hivyo akaweza kufanya ukulima peke yake. Kwa hiyo tumeamua kwamba kuwaweka pamoja kimakundi, haswa vijana, ili waweze kushirikiana kufanya kilimo chenye ufanisi. Walete pamoja ardhi yao ili waweze kupata mazao ya kutosha. Tunaambia wakulima wetu wadogo waanze kutumia mbinu ndogo ndogo za kufanya unyunyizaji ama umwagiliaji maji. Tukija kwenye mambo ya ufugaji, tumeamua tuanzishe uhamasisho wa kuleta mifugo ambao ni bora na kuwasambaza kwa watu wetu, au wanyama ambao ni wastahimilivu kwa hali ya mabadiliko ya tabia nchi na mazingira. Na matokeo yake yameonekana ikiwa mazuri. Lakini kuna matatizo mengi, kwa mfano matatizo ya kupata nishati, na haya matatizo ya kupata nishati yamekuwa mazito kwa nchi yetu. Kwenda mbele tunaona sisi kwamba vyakula vya kimsingi nchini Burundi kama vile maragwe, mahindi, mboga, matunda, mboga na matunda, mihogo. Lakini takwimu zinaonyesha kwamba kipindi cha kuanzia mwaka 2020 hatujaweza kuagiza vitu kama vile vitunguu, viazi, kwa sababu tunavipata nyumbani. Na hiyo ni
hapa Watanzania wanaelewa sana.
Na tukifanya hivyo ni kwamba tutaweza kuuza mambo ya
bon voisinage, ujirani mwema. Ukienda Manyovu utakuta sokoni kuna Warundi na Watanzania. Ukiingia Makamba unakuta Watanzania na Warundi wote wako pamoja. Sijue wanafanya vipi, unakuta shilingi za Tanzania zinatumika Burundi na hela za Burundi zinatumika Tanzania. Hiyo ni ujirani mwema. Asante sana. Pour augmenter la production agricole, les solutions sont prêtes à être portées, sont peut-être
à la portée de la main. Il y a des pays qui ont encore d'énormes terres cultivables, mais pas assez d'investisseurs ou domaines d'œuvre engagés dans le secteur agricole. J'estime que la promotion des investissements d'autres Africains pourrait faire la différence. Beaucoup de mes compatriotes seraient intéressés à l'idée d'investir dans l'agriculture ou de travailler dans ce domaine dans des pays qui seraient prêts à expérimenter leur savoir-faire. J'imagine aussi qu'il y a des Africains qui tenteraient l'aventure si l'opportunité leur était offerte. Certains pays sont en train d'expérimenter le savoir-faire en matière de fabrication de fertilisants organo-minéraux. Nous nous jouissons que
na tukija kwenye matumizi ya mbolea na matumizi ya vifaa, tunaalika wawekezaji wamekaribishwa sana nchini Burundi kuleta mbolea nzuri isiyoharibu ardhi. Kama tunataka kupambana na mambo ya utapiamlo, tunahitaji kufanya bidii kwa mambo ya teknolojia ya Afrika kwa miaka miwili sasa.
Il arrivait même que les ingénieurs agronomiques n'est même pas en champ
hatujapata mainjinia.
Mais actuellement, ils sont nombreux à montrer l'exemple dans leur communauté d'origine et l'impact est immense. Je peux vous témoigner ici que dans mon pays, un phénomène qui ne s'était jamais observé se manifeste. Alors qu'on était habitué à l'exode des ruraux, aujourd'hui c'est l'inverse.
Yani uhamihaji wa vijana kutoka vijijini kuelekea miji. Sasa tunafaa tuanzishe miradi ya kilimo ili iweze kuwavutia vijana hawa waweze kufanya shughuli kazi. Hivyo na bwana, tunafaa tubadilishe mtazamo wetu kwa mambo ya uchumi kuelekea mwaka wa 2060. Na ninawahimiza washirika wetu na wadau wetu wa maendeleo, haswa Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika, na washukuru kwa kuangalia mambo ya mifugo, kwa mfano kilimo cha nyama ya nguruwe, mambo ya kilimo cha kuku, ufugaji wa kuku na mambo mengine. Na pia kuleta sehemu ya pili ni kuangalia kuleta matumizi ya vifaa, matrekta na vifaa, na pia unyunyizaji ama umwagiliaji maji. 3, usindikaji na kuongeza thamani mazao kabla ya kuyasafirisha nje. Hivyo na bwana, ningependa kuita mashirika yote waweze kufanya ubia, yaani ushirikiaji wa jamii na miradi ya ubia, na kusaidia umma wetu. Na ningependa tuangalie mambo ya forodha ya mipakani, tuondoe ili tufanye usafiri wa watu wetu kwa njia ya urahisi. Mabadiliko haya yataleta urahisi hata kutoka upande wa wadau wetu wa sekta binafsi kufanya biashara, na pia kwenye sekta ya kilimo kuwa rahisi kufanya biashara na mambo haya. Serikali yangu imo mbioni na inataka kutoa ahadi kwamba itashiriki katika sehemu hiyo, na pia katika kutoa ama kujenga miundo msingi ambayo itasaidia uzalishaji wa mambo ya kilimo.
Lakini kama hamujaelewa,
tutaendelea kuzungumza, nitawaeleza vizuri. Nawashukuru sana, asante sana. Na namuona mzee Kikwete, ni yeye alinifundisha na hiki Kiswahili kidogo unasikia. Nafurahi sana kumuona tena. Asante sana.
Asante sana Rais Ndayishimiye. Tafadhali tumpe makofi tena. Thank you so much. Na pole Mheshimiwa Rais, niliambiwa kwamba ungezungumza ukiwa umekaa hapo. Kwa hivyo kwa Rais Ruto, Dr. Ruto, tafadhali unaweza ukazungumza kama ulipokaa hapo. And so now it's my pleasure to invite His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya.
Asante. Thank you. Shukrani sana Larry. Kwanza nataka nichukue nafasi hii nimshukuru Mheshimiwa Samia Suluhu Hassan, Rais wa Muungano wa Tanzania kwa kutukaribisha. Namshukuru ndugu yangu Evariste Ndayishimiye na pia ndugu yangu Rais Mwinyi na wote ambao mliofika katika kikao hiki. Mtanisamehe Kiswahili changu si kizuri sana, lakini naona nitang'ang'ana tu. Kwanza nataka nishukuru Mheshimiwa Rais kwa kuchukua nafasi na kuungana nasi katika kongamano kubwa la Climate Change Summit ambayo ilikuwa Nairobi. Na wakati ulikuwa pale ulinipatia maagizo ya kwamba nije katika mkutano huu. Na nimeambiwa ya kwamba maagizo ni instructions. Kwa hivyo sikuwa na la ziada ila nifike. Nyinyi majirani zetu mkitaka kutuangamiza mnasema tuongee Kiswahili. Na ndio hapo tunapata matatizo. Lakini nimesikiza taarifa yako Mheshimiwa Rais kwa makini sana na kufuatilia yale mmetueleza. Na pale pia nikisikiza nikapata msamiati wa Kiswahili katikati pale. Kwanza nikapata kujua ya kwamba tunaweza kuchochea kilimo biashara. Kule kwetu uchochezi sana ni wanasiasa wanafanya uchochezi. Lakini nimeona kumbe uchochezi pia uko na positive ya kwamba unaweza kuchochea kitu kizuri na ikaendelea. Pale pia nimepata kuelewa kwamba kuna mabadiliko ya hewa. Nilikuwa nafikiri ni mabadiliko ya mazingira. So hapo nimepata kuelewa, sasa nitaifuatilia vizuri. Kwa sababu wakati mmoja nilisema mabadiliko ya mazingara. Sasa jamaa mmoja kutoka Tanzania akaniambia mazingara mazingara ni mambo mengine. Yanakaribiana na uchawi sijui na kuelekea upande hiyo. Lakini pia nikasikia umetueleza na nakubaliana na wewe 100%. Kwa muda mrefu tumekuwa walalamikaji. Nimesikia hapo. Lakini niko na malalamiko kidogo. Wacha niseme. kwamba pia nimesikia kwa taarifa yako umerudia azimio. Hao watu walikuwa na azimio. Sasa nikapata kidogo wasiwasi kwa sababu kule kwetu azimio ni mambo mengine. Azimio ni chama ya upinzani, iko na fujo kweli. Lakini hata hivyo nimeelewa tena kwamba azimio kumbe yanaweza kuwa ni mambo mazuri ya makubaliano. Alafu mwisho wacha nimsaidie, Kiswahili changu ni bora kuliko ya Larry, mtu wa kutoka kijiji yangu huko nyumbani. Amesema hapo ya kwamba mnatuzungumzia na Kiingereza ambayo sio kizuri, na sisi tunaongelesha Kiswahili ambazo sio kizuri. Vile alikuwa anataka kusema ni kwamba mnatuzungumzia na Kiswahili sanifu, na sisi tunawazungumza. Happy to participate in this very important forum around the most important subject of our time, about food. In fact, I will tell you that the last campaigns in Kenya were centered around food, the cost of food, the cost of living is in proper context because it speaks to a very important subject, not just globally, not just regionally, even in Kenya, it's a very important subject. And it is an important subject because without many things, you can live without technology, you can fail to have airtime and many other things, but food is something very emotive, and therefore it is important as leaders working with all the other stakeholders to think, to plan, and to do everything possible to make sure we get it right. And this forum, therefore, brings in context the importance of the subject around food and food systems. And I want to just say two things, because Mama Samia has spoken for almost all of us, and my colleagues also have spoken to the issues in the best way possible. Let me just say two things. There are two things that are important from where I sit. Number one is how do we increase productivity? And number two, how do we bring youth into the equation? I think those two issues, encapsulates what I think should inform our thinking going forward. About productivity, let me say three things about productivity. How do we increase our productivity? How do we assist our farmers to produce more and to produce much more efficiently? Number one, fertilizer and seed. The provision of fertilizer and seed is very important. It must be accessible, it must be affordable, and it must be available. What we did in Kenya this year is that we registered 5 million farmers, and we distributed fertilizer online. so that we eliminate brokers, we eliminate conmen, we eliminate people, middlemen, who normally should change farmers, and farmers end up with fertilizer that is too expensive. And because of what we did, we reduced the cost of fertilizer from about $50 a ton to less than $20 a ton. You will speak with your colleagues in Kenya across, and they will tell you that's what we did. And because of that, we increased our fertilizer uptake in just the last season alone. And I have a witness here because Yara, who spoke earlier, Yara International, were amongst our 4 suppliers who supplied the fertilizer to us. That's number one. And let me tell you the results. Last year, we projected to harvest 44 million bags. Because of the intervention around seed and fertilizer, our projection this year is that we will move from 44 million to 61 million bags of maize alone. That is what the correct seed, the correct fertilizer, and affordable fertilizer and accessible fertilizer and seed will do to our farming. Because we just need to be practical about how we want to take this forward. And let me say something about the correct fertilizer. You know, we've been using DAP in Kenya for a long time. This year, I made a policy decision that we are not going to allow any importation of DAP into Kenya. And that is what we did. So we imported the fertilizer which our scientists assessed our soils and told us, these are the nutrients that are lacking in your soil, these are the correct nutrients. We did formulation of fertilizer that we are using for our farmers. Our farmers made noise, but I am telling you today, they are the happiest people. They are the ones who are telling us, you gave us the right fertilizer. That's number one. Number two is to reduce post-harvest losses. We lose between 30 and 35, maybe sometimes even 40% of what we produce because of poor storage, lack of transport, lack of infrastructure for drying, and many other things. So what are we doing? We're doing 3 things. Number one, to reduce the loss of milk, we are distributing 650 milk coolers around Kenya to make sure that our farmers can get to a milk cooler within half an hour of them milking, so that we can improve the quality of our milk and we can reduce losses from milk because of milk going to waste, number one. Number two, we're investing close to $30 million to make sure that our farmers have dryers, especially in the grain areas. And number three, we are doing market infrastructure. We're building around 400 markets around Kenya, and we are building another 50 county aggregation and industrial parks where you have storage, including cold rooms, and where you can add value to some of your produce so that we not only save on post-harvest losses because of poor storage or lack of cold room, but we also add value and take it forward. Again, that increases our productivity and our production because we eliminate post-harvest losses. And finally, and I'm saying this just so that I don't take a lot of your time. We are working on how, and I really liked what President Suluhu said, that government is careful to make sure that farmers have affordable financing or accessible, affordable credit. The same way, Mama Suluhu, you told us in your statement that Tanzania is making sure that farmers have access to credit at below 10%. In fact, you told us 9%. That is exactly what we are doing in Kenya. In fact, we are adding 10 billion shillings to Agricultural Finance Corporation to make sure that farmers have seasonal credit that they can use to expand their productivity. And finally, and this is maybe unique to Kenya, because it's just good to tell you as our neighbors, many of you don't know that 85% of Kenya is arid and semi-arid. So when my sister from UAE was speaking, I was paying very keen attention, because what she's saying is partly what we are experiencing. And that is why in Kenya, we are working with Afreximbank, we are working with the World Bank and other partners to build 100 mega dams, 1,000 micro dams for water storage, because the future rains are going to be very unpredictable. And sometimes we confuse rain for water. We need water to grow food. We don't need rain. Let me say that again. I said we need water to grow food. It is not rain we are looking for. So sometimes we get confused and wait for the rain instead of looking for the water. So I think that is as far as that goes. Let me finally talk about the young people. There is no future in agriculture unless we bring the young people on board. The average age of a farmer in Kenya is about 60 years. So, and when I became Minister for Agriculture, and I had a discussion with my peers then, the logo for the Ministry of Agriculture at that time was an old woman with ile jembe, the hoe, ile jembe. That was the logo of the Ministry of Agriculture. Explain to me how young people are going to have a different perception as a farmer if the logo of the Ministry of Agriculture is an old woman na jembe ameweka hapa kwa mgongo. That is how we changed. Tukabadilisha ile logo, tukaweka hapo greenhouse na irrigation infrastructure. Just, we need to create a new narrative around agriculture for us to bring young people on board. And let me say two things that I think of my head is, number one, technology. Technology will bring the young people into agriculture. That is why my dear sister from UAE said a young person can be an agroeconomist or agrotechnologist, but not a farmer. But it's the same thing, right? So, technology. How have we brought technology into the agricultural equation? Number one, I told you we registered all our farmers and we use technology to distribute our fertilizer, number one. Number two, today we are using e-Citizen, a government platform, digital platform, to disseminate agricultural extension service. So, because you can only do the correct farming if you have the correct information. And number three, we are using technology also for purposes of meteorology and early warning. I find many farmers in rural Kenya today, in fact, wanatumia neno la Kiswahili, yule mtu wa magician, ule wa simu, anasema itanyesha next week. That is how technology is helping inform farmers to plan themselves how to take this forward. And finally, mechanization is going to recruit young people into agriculture. I see it with my own children. Unless you mechanize, it becomes very difficult for young people to be recruited into that space. When you mechanize, they easily can identify with agriculture. So, and if I talk about Kenya, 45% of our agriculture is mechanized. We still have a whole 55% mechanization to do. And that is scope that we can use to recruit the young people of our continent into the agriculture space. Let me conclude by saying one final thing. The billionaires of the future, according to Africa Development Bank, will not be people in Google and all the other spaces. They will be people in agriculture. So if you want to be a rich man in future, you have to begin to go to the right corner. Start being a farmer. And I am telling you from experience because I am one of them. So mujipange hapo kwa kilimo kama unatafuta pesa huko mbele. Hapo kwa kilimo ndio mabilionea watakuwa tukisonga mbele. Na kwa sababu hapo kwa kilimo ndio kutakuwa na mabilionea, pia mjue vile Mama Samia alivyosema, I think they say thuluthi mbili, 65% ya ardhi ya kilimo, arable and uncultivated land, iko katika bara letu la Afrika. Therefore, we have the greatest potential in this continent in the agricultural space, and we should take advantage of it. Kwanza nyinyi ndugu zetu wa Tanzania, mko na mvua nyingi kutuliko sisi wa Kenya. Nyinyi ndio mungekuwa mnazalisha chakula kingi ya East Africa. Na mnafanya bidii, ni vizuri sana, mnafanya bidii. Tunatumia chakula kingi kutoka Tanzania kule Kenya. Lakini kuna watu wachache pale kwa mpaka. Kuna watu wachache wakorofi, watu wajeuri, na saa zingine wazembe. Wanafikiria kwamba mpaka ni ya kuzuia ama ni kizuizi. Hapana, mpaka ni daraja, ni kivukio. Kwenda Kenya ama kuja Tanzania. Si namna hiyo? Na namshukuru sana Mama Samia, ametusaidia kuwakalia hawa watu wa pale mpakani. Walikuwa wametunyanyasa sana, lakini siku hizi tumepata nafuu. Na mjue ya kwamba biashara kati ya Kenya na Tanzania is almost balanced. You just need to sell us more food and then it will be balanced. Mambo kwisha, si ndio? So mujipange hapo. Nimewaibia siri. Sasa msipotumia shauri yenu. Whatever you do with that information is up to you. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. One more time, a big round of applause for President Ruto. And that concludes this section of the Presidential Summit. Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. We appreciate your time and your insight. Asanteni sana. You may take your seats because we are about to watch a video from our hosts, Tanzania, and we want to make sure that their excellencies can see the video that we are referring to before we conclude the session. Again, as they take their seats, one more time, a big round of applause for their excellencies, President Mwinyi, President Hassan, President Ruto, and President Ndayishimiye. And now, as we do that, I want to just give a big thank you. I was told to do this before I forget. Don't worry, President Mwinyi will do a proper vote of thanks. Mine is just to thank the Africa Food Systems Partners Group for their contribution to food systems transformation. Would you please now turn your attention to the screens?
Tanzania, East Africa. Here, a transformation of unparalleled significance is taking root. Tanzania's agricultural evolution, driven by its visionary Agenda 1030, is rewriting the story of food security, not just on the continent, but across the globe. It ensures food security within its borders, but also contributes significantly to global sustenance. Join us on this journey as we delve into the country's visionary Agenda 1030, a blueprint for an agricultural revolution that transcends borders. A beacon of transformation, this land carries the hope of Africa's agricultural future. It's not just its size, 945,000 square kilometers to be exact, that is amazing. You see, 44 million hectares, close to half of the country, is suitable for agriculture. And at the moment, only around 15 million hectares are in use. From highlands, plateaus, plains, rivers, lakes, the adjacent Indian Ocean and the Zanzibar archipelago just offshore gives rise to 4 distinct climatic zones with 2 seasons of rainfall. It is these diverse climatic conditions that allow for almost anything to grow here. Tanzania is a youthful country. 70% of the country's 61 million people are youth under the age of 40, and the average age in the country is 18. With over 65% of its population engaged in agriculture, Tanzania is invested in the idea of being a food basket for the continent of Africa and the globe. Under the visionary leadership of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, the agricultural landscape of the country has witnessed remarkable progress and transformation, largely driven by the private sector. At the core of Tanzania's agricultural metamorphosis lies Agenda 1030. With an annual target growth rate of 10% by 2030, up from the current 5.4%, this comprehensive strategy encompasses diverse aspects from crop diversification to embracing cutting-edge technologies, all driving towards bolstering food security and economic prosperity on a grand scale. Currently, Tanzania's agriculture contributes 26.2% to the GDP, with crops contributing 16%. During the last 2 decades, Tanzania has been 100% self-sufficient in the production of staple foods, with a 15 to 20% surplus. The agricultural sector currently contributes 65% of all raw materials used in the nation's factories, and agricultural